On the misty horizon of the Mexican plains, a solitary silhouette moves among the raised palms of corn and the silent women who till the earth. It is the dawn of an era on the verge of rupture. Beneath the dull sky and the wind carrying the scent of wet soil, a young indigenous woman opens her lips and speaks words that will travel through time, a bridge between worlds. That woman, her name blurred by the fog of history, offers her destiny beyond herself. She speaks, she translates, she advises. As the drums of the empire sound, she stands at the center of a cataclysmic convergence. The collapse of an ancient world, the invasion of another, the unintended birth of a new nation. The world changed, and she was the invisible link that made the rupture possible. This is the story of La Malinche, a woman who, by choice or necessity, assumed a role few could imagine. With every gesture, with every word she translated, she carried the silence of the conquered, the fear of the conquerors, and the urgency of survival. In a suspended moment between past and future, she became the reader of one world and the negotiator of another. Amid the smoke of temples and the echo of Spanish trumpets, she became a symbol, heroine or traitor, mother of the nation or betrayer of her people. What matters is that she changed Mexico forever. At the dawn of the 16th century, Mesoamerica pulsed with color, sound, and mystery. Between dense coastal jungles and crystalline highlands, indigenous peoples inhabited stone cities surrounded by lakes that mirrored the sky. The Mexica Empire, with its grand and imposing capital, ruled vast lands through networks of alliances, tributes, and sacred wars. Priests sang chants to the rising sun, pyramids received sacrifices, and corn, cacao, and jade symbolized fertility, power, and continuity. It was in this world, suspended between ritual and commerce, war and peace, that La Malinche was born around the year 1500, in a small altepetl overshadowed by the great civilizations. Her lineage was likely noble, or at least educated enough to understand the dialects of the caciques. Yet, like so many before her, she was caught in the irreversible turn of history. Her father died, her mother was left unprotected, and she was given away as tribute, as a captive, a servant, a slave. Words that conceal complex nuances of politics and alliance. Her childhood landscape was one of dark green forests, freshwater rivers, and villages where women wove threads, men polished blades, and children ran among straw huts. Then one day, she was torn from that world and cast into the heart of a storm, the encounter of two civilizations. When Hernán Cortés's ships landed in 1519, everything tilted toward the unexpected. Among jungles and rival tribes, he realized that victory required more than weapons. It required voices, keys, bridges. That was when La Malinche entered the stage. Chosen, or imposed, as interpreter and intermediary, she became the living bridge between languages that were never meant to meet. Listening to the chants of the Tlaxcaltecs, decoding the ceremonial tones of the Mexica, translating the sharp steel of Spanish swords into fear and promise, she forged a new identity. Marina, Doña Marina, Malintzin, La Malinche, and with the name came her fate. In corridors of stone and palaces of obsidian, across plains where alliances were made and broken, her voice became indispensable. She understood more than she translated. She understood gestures, intentions, and betrayals. Like a weaver between worlds, she interlaced the threads of blood and diplomacy. The story unfolds through vivid landscapes, the arid chaparral, the vast lakes, the canals of Tenochtitlan, the nights pierced by Spanish trumpets breaking the ancestral silence. La Malinche emerges amid the fury of war, treacherous diplomacy, and the urgency of empire. In Tlaxcala, she negotiates with indigenous leaders who distrust the strangers from across the sea. In Cholula, she warns Cortés of an ambush, and the city burns. In Tenochtitlan, at the fateful meeting between Moctezuma and Cortés, her presence defines the moment, translating, interpreting pauses, reading silence as language. Every scene, the glitter of the lake's surface, the elegant, dangerous movement of warships, the clash of cultures, the smoldering ruins, carries the weight of a dying world and a new one being born. La Malinche witnesses terror and hope, loss and rebirth. Was she a traitor? Some say yes, a savior. Others insist. But above all, she made a choice, or was forced to, that would echo through the centuries. She saw the Mexica Empire crumble, heard the ringing of Spanish coins, and witnessed the merging of bloodlines that created the first mestizos. Within her, she carried the mourning of indigenous women, the strangeness of conquerors, and the silence of the defeated. Yet she also embodied survival, resilience, and intelligence, the ability to adapt and to read power in its purest form. In the dim rooms of Spanish quarters, by indigenous firesides, along the rivers that carried gold and people, La Malinche looked both forward and back, at the past dissolving behind her and the uncertain future ahead. She was bridge and abyss, intelligent, adaptable, burdened with guilt and glory. She was confined to a role history both cursed and needed. She was a tribute girl, a translator, the mother of a mestizo son, and ultimately, the living metaphor of a mixed, wounded, complex nation. The story advances toward the inevitable, the fall of the old empire and the rise of a new world, built not with purity or peace, but with the marks of her hands and her voice. And now, looking back, we ask, what was La Malinche's true legacy? In her eyes reflected two civilizations, and the reflection trembled. One world died, another began. She became a symbol of betrayal to some, survival to others, mother of the nation to many. Yet beyond all that, something purer remains. The memory of a woman who lived between shadows and light, whose voice wove together slavery and freedom, invasion and adaptation, oppression and rebirth. Walking along the lake's edge, her gaze silent and knowing, she lived a short life. She died around 1529, barely 28 or 29 years old. And in that brief existence lies the metaphor for the Mexico that would follow. Young, scarred, mestizo, complex. The land we see today was not born of pure heroes or perfect villains, but of human beings forced to make impossible choices in impossible times. La Malinche was one of them, vulnerable, powerful, misunderstood, and decisive. Remembering her is to look into the mirror of our own history, a history of encounters and collisions, of bodies moving through darkness, of voices translating the unspoken. Her legacy does not live in swords or written words, but in the silence that followed, in what was not said, in what was forgotten, in what was reinvented. The memory of a woman who changed the course of a nation invites us to ask, how many of us, unknown and unseen, are bridges between worlds? And how many worlds are born from the courage, or necessity, of a single voice carrying the weight of history?